has been an incredibly difficult few days for you, for the province. How are you and your team doing?
Yeah, it's been certainly a really difficult week now for Nova Scotia, for sure. The fires we've had, the devastation we've seen, almost over 20,000 people evacuated from their homes, almost 21,000, 200 homes destroyed. There's just a lot happening in the province right now, and the risk is still high. We do need rain here. The response from the firefighters has been just spectacular, unbelievable. What the work they're doing under these conditions, but it's extremely dry here. It's been windy all week, so we need the weather to cooperate, but we'll get through this, but certainly the recovery will take a long time as well.
You know, we also want to ask you about the resources that have been committed from the federal government. We know that a request was put in. I'm sure that you had heard that update that was provided by the Minister of Emergency Preparedness, Bill Blair. He was talking about what is coming to Nova Scotia in terms of equipment, in terms of water bombers, and also resources that will be coming your way. So I'm wondering what your reaction to that is.
Well, we're hopeful. So, talking to our officials this morning, they said that there is progress. That's a good thing. But in the meantime, our crews have been working hard. The support from our neighboring provinces has been well received. They've been very generous. Newfoundland has had water bombers here all week. They've got firefighters here. New Brunswick has had water bombers here and also sent some fire retardant material, a base camp for that. PEI has firefighters here, Ontario, and they sent hose. Ontario sent hose. So I've heard from premiers across the country. So the province-to-province support network, that's been working really effectively. So there's a role for the federal government, and I'm optimistic that they will, feel the urgency and really get the support moving.
You know, I do want to ask you about that because, of course, as you know, there were some comments that were made by yourself in regards to the sort of reaction that you received when you had previously asked for assistance from the federal government when it came to another natural disaster, to Fiona. When that hit Nova Scotia, there was an indication there that paperwork was not adequately filled out. As a result, perhaps you did not get the resources that the province needed in a timely manner. Also, part of what you said there was it was a fraction of what was requested. I'm wondering, based on what you've seen happen in the past, do you feel optimistic and hopeful that the resources that you say are very much needed in the province right now are going to come in a timely fashion this time?
I have to be hopeful. I mean, I have to believe that lessons were learned from the last time. Obviously, the last time we had Fiona and what we were looking for at that time, and you can imagine the paperwork that was going back and forth, binders and binders of information. But irrespective of that, at that time, right in the middle of the Fiona crisis and aftermath, we had federal elected officials here. They saw it for themselves. So, I was obviously disappointed. I didn't hold back my expression of disappointment at the time, particularly in this province where when we're asking for military support, strong tradition of support for the military from the Maritimes. I grew up in a military family. We have military bases here. We're grateful for their presence in this province, and we support the military. And at the time after Fiona, we had a lot of D&D personnel based in Nova Scotia that wanted to help their communities, but they just needed those orders from up the chain. And I believe that those orders could have came pretty quickly from the Prime Minister of Canada. So, in the aftermath of that, to hear things like, well, it wasn't, you needed to do this or you needed to that, I believed, A, that we had done that, but B, I believe that, the response should have been, there was a time for action, and that time was missed, I believed, at that point in time. So here we are now. We have these fires, the disaster that's happening. The need is, again, obvious. The urgency of the need should be obvious. People's homes are literally burning down. Their lives are being turned upside down. So the need to respond urgently is also known. So, I hope that, there's a little lesson learned there. We hold each other to account. Nova Scotians hold me to account. I hold the federal government to account on the response. But we have to put all that to the side and say, people are hurting. People are struggling. Those with the resources to support those people that are struggling should act in a country like this. So, but we'll get by that. Around Nova Scotia right now, there's thousands of stories of people helping people, standing up, to help them out, opening their homes to strangers, and the provinces are stepping up. The federal government can step up. So I have to be optimistic that we learn as we go, and last time that the Fiona response is gone, but we have to learn from that, and we have to act differently this time. So I have to be optimistic.
In terms of specifics, we know that in speaking with Bill Blair, listening to some of the questions that were put towards him, in terms of Canadian Forces resources on the ground in Nova Scotia, there were no specifics in terms of number or timeline. Do you have any more information about that at this stage?
No, but what my officials told me is that there was a commitment for D&D personnel, and I think what I would say, there's an immediate need now for firefighters. We have firefighters coming from Costa Rica, we have them coming from Maine, so we have them coming from other provinces, as I mentioned. But we'll get through. These fires are out of control right now. They need to be tamped down, knocked back, and then there's a long recovery of kind of mop up and keeping an eye for flare-ups and stuff. So I think the D&D support would be helpful then as well. So, but in the immediate time right now, the need for supplies like hose, like fire retardant material, foam, certainly the aircraft. There's immediate needs. There's medium term needs and then there'll be long term. But look, we'll get through this. But right now in this province today, we have people that are learning that their house was destroyed. As that information is rolled out, and that's I feel so sorry for those people. So there's a lot of emotions in the province right now. It's been a really tough time for our province, but hopefully it rains this weekend in significant amounts. We need significant rain for sure to get through this. The weather all week has been on the side of the fires. It's been windy and it's been dry and it's been pushing these fires. But if the weather turns and somehow the firefighters can get a little bit of support from the weather, that's what's really needed right now.
To the end of you discussing people who have, of course, lost their homes and are just in some cases, as we heard from the update from Halifax officials earlier today, they're just getting a chance, in the past 24 hours or so, to take a look at the site or to learn about the damage done to their homes. In some cases, they've lost them entirely. I'm wondering if you have had a chance in all of the discussions that, of course, you've had to have over the past week, if you've talked to any of these homeowners, any of these residents who are contending with this tragic news and what they've said to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the nature of our province is a close-knit province. So if you're not one of the evacuees, you probably most certainly know one, or even if you don't, you've seen the smoke, or you're a human and you've seen the pictures and the images. So we all feel it, and I've certainly been around comfort centers and talked to people who knew at that time that their house was gone. And so there's a lot of tears in those conversations from both sides, because it's life just turned upside down out of the blue. These fires, they started so quick and they moved so quickly. The evacuations in many cases were just minutes. Somebody knocked on the door and said, "You have to leave. You have 3 minutes. You have 5 minutes," and they had to leave. And now they're learning that there's nothing to go back to, and that's just a heartbreaking thing. And but I think when you think about the number of people that were evacuated and the speed that the evacuation exercise took place, I'm really proud of the professionalism of the firefighters and the first responders that were doing the evacuation, and for Nova Scotians for responding, because for all of this, for the terrible week it's been, 0 deaths reported as a result of these fires, 0 people missing, 0 serious injury. And I think that's something that's a real testament to the response and the professionalism of our first responders and our the firefighters in every agency that was on the ground, but also for Nova Scotians for heeding the call and responding. But some of them have nothing to go back to, and some of them, we still don't know when they can go back to those that have something. So it's a tough time for sure.
No question, Premier Houston, news of no loss of life and no missing individuals, which was provided in the last update. That is very good news. No one could hope for better than that at this stage when there is such an emergency and a dire situation underway in the province. I do want to finally ask you, when it comes to Hurricane Fiona and these wildfires now, back to back, how much of a test has this been for you and your leadership, for the province and for the people of Nova Scotia?
Yeah, I think it's we've had our fair share thrown at us in this province, but it's not only unique to Nova Scotia for sure. But I think what I want Nova Scotians to know is we will get through this for sure. But absolutely, you're right. We've dealt with a lot. Throw in a pandemic, throw in the terrible tragedy we had at Portapic. We've dealt with a lot in this province, but the resiliency of Nova Scotians is really shining through, and the resiliency and the compassion of people to support each other. As I said, the people helping people. That's what kind of energizes all of us. We stand up for each other in this province. That's the Blue Noser spirit, and it's shining through in a big, big way.
Well, certainly we know that Nova Scotians have the support of all Canadians. Thank you so much for your time today, Premier.
Thanks for having me.